Hi, everybody. My name is Terry, and welcome to Gateway to Counseling. Today, I am going to be speaking to you about sexual identity. I am Terry, like I said, and I am a licensed professional counselor. I have over 25 years working in the field, and I have seen a lot, especially in this area of sexual identity. So, first of all, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. This might be something that you're struggling with, or you know someone who is struggling with sexual identity. I wanted to start off by saying that we've come a long way. Here we are in 2017, and we've made significant progress in this area. I can recall when I was just a little girl in my little town of Beaumont, Texas, that we had people that it was a subject that wasn't really talked about very much, or people talked about it and laughed about it. I remember we had a friend of mine who lived one street over, and I remember the adults saying, "Oh yeah, that's her roommate." It was two ladies who were living together, and we always thought that was just her best friend. But the adults said that it was something different going on there because they slept in the same bed. So, you heard stories like that. Or I can recall one of our friends was a guy, and he always played with the girls. Always played with the girls from a very young age till we were adolescents. And I remember as we became adolescents, people would say things about him as well. And then you fast forward to when I was providing some counseling services for a particular agency. I remember a young man coming in, and he lived in a very, very small country town, and he knew that he was gay. And he said to me, "I can't come out." But he was struggling so much because he wanted to be able to talk to people and communicate with people who were like him. And there was no one like him in his small town. And we talked about being true to himself, and what that would look like, and what kind of consequences he would experience in such a small town. And I'll be honest with you, this was probably 15 years ago, and I said to him, "You can't come out. You can't come out in your small town." He had about another year and a half left of high school. So we set up some support systems, some things that he could do where he could have contact and have support with individuals who felt like him, who were homosexual, where he could connect, but not be just confined to his community. My fear and his concern of that small town, it was we're in Texas, so it was a small, what we call a small hick town. And he said, "If I come out, I don't know what's going to happen to me." And so that was a huge struggle because I wanted him to be true to himself, but I knew that there would be dangers as well. And so we had to use some common sense. And he was able to get the support that he needed, not only through me and counseling services, but we built a support system around him, so that when he left that small town, he was free. And now, now I work with some young adults who, for example, are in high school, some young adolescents, and it's cool to be gay, and that's the end thing. And I talk with kids who maybe it's a girl who says, "Well, no, I'm not really a lesbian. Yeah, I have a girlfriend, but last year I had a boyfriend." And it's just whoever pleases me, whoever I'm attracted to. And I kind of like that about this new generation, because it's not about male or female, heterosexual or homosexual. It's Who do I connect with? Who do I bond with? I like this person as a person, regardless of what sex they are. And then I have guys who say, oh yeah, I do threesomes with a guy, a girl, and it's just all in between. And so is more liberated, right? So we've made a lot of progress. And yet, here we are, shooting this video, and you're watching it now, and still people struggle. Still people get very depressed, low self-esteem issues, and just a ton of confusion. A ton of confusion. I had a client who was extremely confused as he was transitioning. He was in a male's body, but he felt that he was female, and so he was going through the transition. And he would become extremely frustrated and angry because he wanted everyone to refer to him as she. Not he, but she, because he was going through the transition. And one day I had to say to her, but you don't look like her. You still look like him. Yes, he carried a purse and he wore makeup, but there were times that he had a ton of facial hair. And he looked like him. And the biggest struggle that I saw him experiencing was that he wanted to prove to people who he was. And he was insisting, and he would start arguments with individuals because of this issue that he was having within himself. And one day he received some really good feedback from an associate who said, but you don't know who you are either. And that was very difficult to hear. So we here at Gateway to Counseling, we're here, of course, to help you guys. We're here to help you figure this out, to know who exactly are you. Are you male? Are you female? Do you like guys? Do you like girls? I remember now a case that I worked with. She transitioned into being he and then married she. And then they adopted a kid. And that became a whole bunch of issues because, well, there's a lot of legalities when you're adopting, and you still have to go back to what your birth certificate says you were. So there was all kinds of things going on there, and so there was a lot of struggles. But I think that regardless of who you are and who you want to be, you have to accept who you are today, if that makes any sense to you. If I am a woman and I am attracted to other women, then that's where I'm at today. And if I enjoy the company as a woman, a man, tomorrow, then that's where I am tomorrow. And that's okay. But you have to start to peel the layers back and accept who's in here. Because if you don't accept who you are, no one is going to accept who you are. If you don't know who you are, no one is going to accept who you are. I work with a lot of young women who have been sexually abused. And many of them are lesbians. They don't want to have anything to do with men. And that's where they are. But they have to start to peel back the layers of being abused, and sometimes being terribly afraid of male contact. It triggers them too much, and they have to work through the triggers. And we do that. We work through the triggers. And then I work with some people who say, well, I'm just gay for the state. And those are, of course, in our confined institutions. And that's okay too, if that's where you are. But accept where you are and know where you are and know who you are. And don't let anyone else define you. Don't let a past trauma define who you are. You have to begin to search and dig deep inside to realize, how did you get here? And I'm going to say this to you. A lot of individuals that I work with who are struggling in this area really struggle because of religion. And they say, well, the Bible says that, it's my mom says that. And people get really bogged down into feeling guilty about who they are. I remember attending a seminar, and there was someone there that was talking about basically what the Bible says about homosexuality. And I sat there and I listened to it, and I had my own ideas. And then as I was leaving, there was two older women, and they had to have been probably in their 80s. And I remember them saying to one another, yeah, I hear everything, but do you remember so and so? Do you remember they had two sons who from a little age of maybe 3, 4 had those feminine tendencies, and then they grew up to be homosexual? I have witnessed that. I've witnessed it in my counseling, where a 6-year-old was struggling because his father insisted that he be masculine, and he was not. And he knew that he was feminine. He knew inside. He knew from around the age of 4, when he enjoyed going to his mother's room and going through her things and putting on her things, not dad's things. And it had nothing to do with sex. It had nothing to do with wanting to have sex with another person. It's who he felt he was inside. And he was suffering, and he was so angry. He was angry, and he was really angry at his dad. And it was causing all kinds of problems at school, because mom would say, well, you can play with dolls here at home, but you can't have dolls out there. You can have a purse here at home, but you can't have a purse out there. And it became very confusing as to who he was. And parents struggle so much because they don't want their kids to go through the trauma of what's going on in some of the schools. Now, I said to you earlier, the schools have gotten so much better. The new generation are so accepting of who you are, where you are. I've walked through the hallways of schools, and you have a guy who is wearing very feminine clothes and has the makeup and the purse, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine. But some people still struggle, and some schools still struggle, and some cities still struggle with this area. So we have to balance this so that everyone is safe, okay? Because I don't want anything to happen to you, but I also want you to be clear on who you are. So back to this little kid, he knew without a doubt who he was. His parents were struggling with who he was. So I've seen where people from a very young age know who they are. And sometimes they try to hide it to please other people. They know if they feel masculine or feminine. They know when they start having, these sexual desires for the same sex and not the opposite sex. they know from very young ages. And we have to remember that you were created the way you are. From the time you were in your mother's womb, God knew who you were. Whether you call him God or divine or spirit or whatever, you were created the way that you are. That's why sometimes I struggle with the trauma part of it. Because the trauma is an event that happened that maybe caused you to be the way you are. And if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. Because maybe that's where you've needed to be. Does that make sense to you? That sometimes we go through traumas to get to where we are or where we need to be. And that's a part of acceptance too, isn't it? So I'm thinking right now of individuals who are born with both genitals, right? And back in the day, they used to go into the hospital and they would decide for you who you were going to be. So they would cut, and it was always easier to, I hate to say this, but it was always easier to cut off the penis and then make it into a female. But they only handled the outside part of you. They didn't handle the inside part of you. So that's why I insist that you have to accept who you are, because society can't define you. Society can't tell you who you are. Society can't tell you how you were formed. So you have to tell society who you are by accepting them. So I hope that makes a lot of sense today. I just wanted to talk to you just for a little bit, to provide you some information, to give you some support, to applaud you that you are here working through peeling back the layers so you can discover who you really are. Please, if you need more support than what I've given you here today, more information, more education, please come to us at Gateway to Counseling. We're just a screen away. We're always opening our doors, opening our gates so that you can have a brighter tomorrow where you are always in control. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.